This almost doesn't warrant a Fox alert. Donald Trump has gone ahead and skipped a second presidential debate. This, of course, the Fox Business one next week in California. He says he's going to be delivering a Detroit primetime speech, presumably to address the strike that's going on, even though the head of the UAW does not appear to be a big fan of the former president. Anyway, Chris Christie is joining us right now, presidential candidate, a former two-term governor of the blue state of New Jersey. He made it red for a couple of terms. Governor, very good to have you.
Thank you for having me, Neil.
Let's talk a little bit about Donald Trump's decision. I'm sure you're not surprised, but a number of times, Governor, you've said that you would follow Donald Trump. Do you still plan to follow him?
Yeah, no, look, I said I was going to give him 2 debates to show up. So he's not going to show up at debate number 2. So after debate number 2, we're going to have to go find him, I guess. Look, we've got Joe Biden, who campaigned all these years ago in a basement. We now have Donald Trump, who's hiding behind the walls of his golf clubs and only going into very controlled circumstances where, he doesn't get to be asked questions by voters. I mean, I think this is incredibly disrespectful to voters, Neil. They have a right to hear from him about his record when he was president, about what his plans are if he were to be the nominee again, and he just is ignoring it.
So what would you do if you followed him, if you knew a place where he would be, if he was in a diner or whatever? I mean, what would you do? What would you say?
Yeah. Neil, I'm going to keep that between me and Donald Trump when I get there. No reason to give him a preview on that. But he'll just never know when I'm going to show up. And I think that'll be a good thing for this process. We need for him to engage because the voters deserve it. It's disrespectful for him not to. And quite frankly, it's cowardly. He doesn't want to be on there because he doesn't want to defend some of the things he's done and said. Like accepting Vladimir Putin's endorsement. I have to tell you, if an autocratic, murderer like Vladimir Putin endorsed me, I would reject that endorsement immediately. But for Donald Trump, he seems to like those things from authoritarian dictators.
But, Governor, well, Democrats, by and large, like that and your message. You'll have a devil of a time getting past Republicans, right? You poll well in New Hampshire, where you're focusing a lot of your efforts. I get that. But the view is that you've ticked off so many Trump voters and supporters that they will never support you.
I just don't believe that's true. First off, we've just started to engage in this process. We've been in the race for 3 months. And I don't believe that that's going to be the case ultimately. And certainly after I win the nomination, they're certainly going to vote for me instead of voting for Joe Biden, who is both mentally and physically proving himself not to be up to the job. So we're going to go out there and we're going to make the case, because if Donald Trump's the nominee, Neil, I am very afraid that we are going to wind up with Joe Biden as president for another 4 years. He's going to do damage to this country that will be very difficult to repair.
All right. Now, you have talked about New Hampshire and its importance. I think you have said, Governor, that if you don't finish in the top 4, you quit the race. I think in 2016, you finished 6th in that state. So 4th or better, you stay. 5th or below, you're out.
Yeah, no, look, I think you have to do well in either Iowa or New Hampshire. I'm staking it on New Hampshire, and you got to do well there. I'm a realistic guy, Neil, and I know that you got to make the sale to people, and that's what we intend to do over the course of the next number of months between now and when the primary occurs in late January.
So Florida has something, they dispense with the loyalty pledge. In other words, whoever wins is supported by everyone else, and everyone else supports whoever wins. You were among those not raising your hand on that notion of that in the last debate, which I think was a message that if it were Donald Trump, you wouldn't be supporting him. Could you explain?
Well, the specific question, Neil, was would you support someone convicted of a felony for president of the United States? And look, I just don't believe that's something that anybody should be doing.
What if he's not convicted of a felony?
Well, but that wasn't the question. And look, Neil, I've gone through this a whole bunch of times before. And the fact is that we are going to win the nomination, and I intend to win it. And when we do, I have no expectation that Donald Trump will support me.
Okay, that probably might be a safe bet. Let me ask you a little bit about this ongoing UAW strike, Governor. I talked to Nikki Haley about this over the weekend, and she was saying, you know, be careful here. Some of these pay demands and the like are going to be passed along. Didn't say exactly what she would do as a president in that. This president has made it very clear where he stands. He supports union workers and offered to send 2 administration officials to help in the talks. The UAW chief doesn't want him there, at least at this point. What would you do as president with something like this?
Well, one of the things I'd make clear right away to both sides is this. People deserve to be paid for their level of expertise and skill and for how hard they work. And when the business is doing well, you know, folks who help to create the products for that business should be doing well also. I have no problem with that, and I think workers are right to be asking for more money. Here's the problem. When they ask to be paid for a 40-hour work week but only do 32 hours of work, that's a problem, Neil. I mean, you know, and I think it's going to wind up turning Americans off. Everybody would love to be able to get paid for when they don't work. But in this instance, that's not what it should be. And so I have a problem with the union, the approach the union's taking. Let's pay people what they deserve for their skill, their expertise, and how hard they work. But let's not be paying for people not to work.
Let me switch to what's happening in Washington as well, Governor, where a government shutdown seems to look increasingly more likely as the days go by and failed procedural votes still keep happening, as Kevin McCarthy is going to keep offering these matters before a vote, even if it fails. But it looks like we are on a shutdown course. And some are blaming his leadership, and more specifically, intransigent Republican conservatives for this. Where do you stand?
It's a failure by everybody involved, Neil. If we shut down the government, you're sent down there to operate the government, not to shut it down. And so you've got to find a way to get it done. We've got to recognize that we're in divided government. And in divided government, you're not going to get everything that you want. And I think that the Speaker did a good job in terms of what he did regarding the debt ceiling, getting some concessions there in return for raising the debt ceiling. And I think we've got to look to be able to forge an agreement recognizing that, you know, we're in divided government. But everybody gets an F, Neil, if it turns out you close down the government. That's not what they're there to do. They're there to solve problems, not create more.
You know, Governor, we're just getting reports. This is from ABC News. I'm sure you've heard concerning the classified documents that Donald Trump had in his possession, and an assistant who told ABC News that Donald Trump would write to-do lists on some of these classified documents. Your thoughts?
Look, this just shows the level of disrespect he was showing for the documents that were created with American men and women in both the military and in our intelligence community putting their lives on the line to get that information so the president can be fully briefed. But to me, Neil, I've read that report, and the worst part of the report is not, believe it or not, in my mind, the to-do lists on the back of classified documents. The worst is when he called that assistant when she was going to go before the grand jury and said, "You don't know anything about my boxes of documents." I mean, that is active witness tampering. That's active obstruction of justice. I mean, so if she's telling the truth, then we have more evidence that will be presented at the time of trial. And this case will be tried. And this is the guy that we want to make our nominee. This is the person we think can beat Joe Biden. He's going to be spending most of March, all of March, and most of April in a federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., defending himself, rather than being out on the trail, taking it to Joe Biden. We need to nominate someone whose full focus will be on taking it to Joe Biden and defeating him and restoring conservative Republican values to the White House and to governance in Washington. And this is just another example of the drip, drip, drip of information that's going to come out about irresponsible conduct by Donald Trump that's going to be used by Democrats and others to take him on if he were the nominee. We need to stop that now. Thank him for his service. Send him back to Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster and get a nominee who can win this race and beat Joe Biden.
Real quickly, you had said of a Biden-Trump possible match that both are past their sell-by date. Now, Governor, I've heard from a lot of older Americans who are curious, what is Chris Christie's definition of a sell-by date? How old do you have to be?
It's not an age. It's the way you act at that age, Neil. So, for instance, Joe Biden's now 80 years old. When you fall asleep sitting across from the Israeli president in the Oval Office, while there's a whole camera spray in front of you, that shows you're no longer up to the job. Also, the various fictional stories he tells. And Donald Trump is past his sell-by date temperamentally. I want to just remind voters of the big difference between 2016 Donald Trump and 2024 Donald Trump. In 2016, he said, "I am your voice." In 2023, he's now saying, "I am your retribution." We do not need a president who believes the presidency is to be used for retribution. We need a president who is going to use the presidency to lift up the lives, the spirits, and the future of every American. That's why they're both past their sell-by date. It's not a number, Neil. It's the way you act. It's your conduct. And they are both, in my view, past their sell-by date.
All right, because the White House spokesman says that 80 is the new 40. I guess you don't buy that.
No, I don't buy it. And by the way, it doesn't look like Joe Biden buys it either. I mean, he's not acting like he's 40. I knew Joe Biden when he was 40. He's certainly not acting that way.
Okay, Governor, very good seeing you again. Governor Chris Christie. You can catch him, of course, in the big debate next week on the 27th. It'll be on Fox Business, simulcast on this fine network as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.